Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Tuesday evening, February 20, 2024. And before I jump into it, let me apologize in advance for the low or the poor audio quality on account of this cold that I have that has given me a very hoarse throat. So if I cut in and out at points in this video, I apologize. Alright, so please ensure that you guys like the video, share, subscribe, and tap notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I post a brand new video. Feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section letting me know what that's been like in your ear recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so let us take a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening. We can see that we have that blue line right there, and you can see that it has a red stripe right there across the Jamaica area. So it's definitely now a frontal boundary kind of stationary across the Jamaica area right now, and it's definitely associated with that broad area of low pressure. So that cold front stretching from that broad area of low pressure off the east coast of the United States, and we can see the clouds associated with it, all courtesy of this visible satellite imagery of the Atlantic. We can see the clouds stretching all the way from the Turks and Caicos, southern Bahamas, across sections of eastern Cuba, Jamaica, all the way down into portions of Central America, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. And these clouds have definitely been bringing some overcast skies, rainfall, not to mention cooler temperatures. If we take a look at the prediction that was made in yesterday's video, we can see that northern Jamaica was expected to receive rainfall last night into Tuesday morning, and then it would affect sections of some southern and eastern parishes during Tuesday afternoon. And what ended up happening, by the way, for your information, we know northern parishes, we're talking about Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland. Southern parishes, we're talking about Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Thomas. And we know eastern parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Surrey, so Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew. Western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall, so St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, and Trelawney. And what ended up happening? The prediction made for last night came true because the Cuban Doppler radar images were posted at 11:40 p.m. highlighting the greens. As you can see, the greens on the key right here on the right that represent light to moderate rainfall. It definitely affected sections of some northern parishes in Jamaica. Even by 6:20 a.m. we had another post being made on our Twitter page. By the way, keep in mind that these posts aren't only made on our Twitter page at Weather Jamaica, but they're made on our Instagram page at weather.jamaica, TikTok at Weather Jamaica, Facebook at Weather Jamaica 876. So we can see that even at 6:20 a.m. we still had the Cuban Doppler radar images showing rainfall across sections of some northern and northwestern parishes in Jamaica. Even by 9 a.m. we had the visible satellite images being posted, and it basically looks the same as what we saw earlier. The same thing. All of these clouds associated with the cold front across sections of Jamaica. If we take a look at another post that was made at 11:36 a.m., we saw the close-up view showing the clouds bringing overcast skies and isolated showers to sections of most areas. Most areas across central and eastern Jamaica excuse me, got in on more overcast skies. The rainfall was more confined to sections of northern and western Jamaica throughout the day, but that's definitely going to be changing tonight. Even the live camera from See Jamaica's YouTube channel was posted on our pages, highlighting the rainfall at 1:11 p.m. across sections of the corporate area. This is Crossroads right there. And we even had some of our commenters confirming the rainfall. We had Ruth Johnson, rained heavily at one point in Mobay area. Audrey Jackson, light drizzle all day and very cool. Brian Stevenson, it is raining where I live. Even on our Instagram page, we had a confirmation. Chassis, stating overcast in Savlamar. Official underscore Uncle Sock, stating raining here in Mobile. Sexy Anna, stating rain from last night. Sandy Bay, Hanover. Reggae African, rain in Discover Bay. Anna Marie 2640, raining non-stop from last night in St. James. And even Tiffany stating raining in Portmore. Panton Javon stating Spanish Town, cloudy with drips of rain. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of Jamaica before the sun went down, we saw that before the sun started to go down, the clouds were starting to clear out a little bit across western Jamaica, and we saw more thick clouds across sections of central, excuse me, central and eastern parishes in Jamaica. If we take a look at the latest infrared satellite images, we can see the clouds at this time still across sections of the island. These are the latest, by the way. So we're still having a lot of cloud cover across the island. We won't see the moon peeking out at any point, and we're still gonna be getting in on some amount of rainfall, especially across sections of some northeastern parishes in Jamaica. So St. Mary, Portland getting in on the weather as we speak, and there's definitely more to come. Before we take a look at the temperatures, we need to highlight this post that was also made, highlighting the fact that there's a tropical storm in the Atlantic. It actually forms south of the equator. It's actually their time of year for it. It's winter now in the northern hemisphere, which means that it is summer now in the southern hemisphere. So they're getting in on some amount of tropical activity in the southern hemisphere. It's not unusual for the southern hemisphere to get tropical weather during the winter in the northern hemisphere, but it's quite unusual to be having a tropical storm in the southern Atlantic, and that's definitely what's right there off the coast of Brazil. And it didn't bring much in the way of damage. The most it brought was some high tides across coastal areas of Brazil, but it's definitely something worth mentioning, considering that we don't normally get tropical storms across this part of the Atlantic basin. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, so keep in mind that the cold fronts, cool temperatures are starting to seep in, especially with the clouds finally here. Some areas more than others. I know some persons are still suffering in the heat, but we can still have 24 degrees Celsius right now in Montego Bay. Well, yes, 24 degrees Celsius right now in Montego Bay, 26 degrees Celsius in Kingston. But keep in mind that temperature should dip down at 3 a.m. on Wednesday to about 22 degrees Celsius in Montego Bay, 23 degrees Celsius in Kingston. And as it relates to the temperature forecast for tomorrow, we're starting to see the blues that represent below normal temperature seep into portions of the Greater Antilles, including Jamaica. And we know we live in the tropics. Sometimes the sun is out, even when we're having a cold front. And although there are below average temperatures in the area, the sun is so daunting that we don't even feel these below average temperatures. We normally feel these below average temperatures during the late night or in the early morning hours, and we know that when we see those greens that are expected to get here on Thursday, that represents down to 4 to even 5 or even 6 degrees Celsius below normal, as we can see by the key on the right. But keep in mind that this map is showing 18 on Wednesday, which is actually 1 p.m. on Wednesday, so we're starting to get in the cooler than average temperatures. And we know the average temperatures for the month of February across Jamaica are about 86.4 degrees Fahrenheit. When we take a look at the thermometer, and that's about the same as 30 degrees Celsius. So with the maps showing some blues that represent 1 to 2 degrees Celsius below normal, maybe even 3 degrees Celsius below normal in some areas for 1 p.m. on Wednesday, temperatures should dip down to less than 3 or minus 3 from 30. That's that 27 degrees Celsius, anywhere from 27 The 30 degrees Celsius is what's going to be expected across Jamaica for Wednesday. As it relates to the dry air map, we see on some weather channels on YouTube they usually show this map and say that it's Saharan dust. It's not actually Saharan dust. This is actually dry air because there's no way it's Saharan dust and we're not even seeing the hazy skies or whatnot. It's more in the way of Sahara, dry air. So we see the yellows, the oranges, the reds, the whites, and then those are stretching all the way from Africa across the main development region into the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. While this map is actually showing the Saharan dust. And we can see that there was some Saharan dust plaguing sections of the Caribbean as indicated by those lighter shades of browns, but all of that has dwindled now. All of that has gone. But what we're seeing now is a huge plume coming off of Africa, as we can see by those darker shades of browns. That's what we don't want to see. That's a vigorous plume right there. That's definitely worth causing hazy skies, some beautiful sunrises and sunsets. But we know how badly the Saharan dust can be, triggering asthma and sinusitis issues in some people. So if it actually makes it to the Caribbean for the weekend or next week, do take necessary precautions so that you're not that drastically affected. Taking a look at the waves right now, we can see that we have more in the way of blues surrounding the island, and this is valid for Wednesday. The blues, as we can see by the key on the bottom right, represents anywhere from 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights, and that's because the winds are not going to be that strong at all. We see more in the way of blues and greens across the island, and we know the blues represent anywhere from, let's say, 10 to 15, maybe even close to 20 knots. The yellows that represent 25 knots are more off the east and west coast of the island. Either way, the winds are going to be coming in from the north, and we know how these things go. We have all of that air piling up on the north coast, that relief rainfall, the condensation. Either way, as it relates to what the precipitation forecast maps are showing, they're still already showing that rainfall that we're getting right now across sections of northern and eastern Jamaica. It's represented by the blues. Keep in mind that both of these maps from the Euro and the GFS are valid for 10 p.m. tonight, and by about 2 a.m. it's supposed to get even wetter. Look at all of those blues that represent rainfall across northeastern Jamaica, and I don't see much rainfall for the rest of the night across or for the remainder of the day for Wednesday across Jamaica. But as we can see from the accumulated precipitation forecast, there's definitely some amount of rainfall that's expected. Look at that, all of those reds right there across northeastern parishes that represent close to an inch of rainfall, but that's on the Euro model. GFS showing something similar with the location, but not the amount of rainfall that's expected, only up to 0.34 of an inch of rainfall across Portland. Either way, northeastern Jamaica is definitely going to be getting in on some amount of rainfall, and we're indeed grateful. We're in the month of February. February is the peak of fire season in Jamaica. We see more fire trucks going up and down during this time of year than any other. So to be getting some amount of rainfall during this month, it's quite, something. We're grateful to be getting in on that rainfall right now as we are in the peak of our dry season. So we'll take all the rainfall that we can get before we get into our wet season. And before I start to focus on the Caribbean weather, let us take a look at this image from the Climate Prediction Center, which I'm sure actually came out today. There it is, February 20, 2024. And just for reference, we know the reds at the bottom represent tropical cyclone formation. The greens represent above average rainfall. The browns represent below average rainfall. The oranges represent temperatures, and the blues represent temperatures as well. The oranges or the yellows represent above normal temperatures. The blues represent below normal temperatures. Shockingly, we don't see much in the way of anything at all across the Caribbean right here for the next 3 weeks. This is valid for February 28th to March 5, as well as March 6 to 12. So there's actually nothing worth mentioning. It's just gonna be business as usual, the usual kind of weather that we usually get during the latter part of February into early March. And we know that by the end of March, or at the end of February, sorry, we're going to be having a summary of what happened across the Jamaica area for the month of February, not to mention the outlook for the month of March. Alright, so that's it. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So we can say we have some amount of low-level clouds coming in from the east to affect sections of the Leeward Islands with some amount of isolated showers, section of the Windward Islands as well. Not to mention those clouds across the southern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, eastern Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, sections of Nicaragua, Costa Rica getting in on the action. And if we take a look at the Doppler radar images of the northeastern Caribbean, we can see where we have those greens that represent light to moderate rainfall, some of which could affect sections of Puerto Rico as we head into tonight and tomorrow, already affecting sections of the British Virgin Islands, not to mention areas east of there, if not across the water right now, could get in on some hit or miss isolated light to moderate rainfall across sections of Antigua and Barbuda, Guadeloupe, Dominica, sections of Martinique, St. Lucia, and even on the Barbados radar we see a lot of rainfall as well. Not much happening across Barbados right now, but we see some rainfalls coming in from the east, sections of Martinique getting in on that rainfall, or it should get in on that rainfall later on tonight into early tomorrow morning. St. Lucia, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, definitely the Grenadines getting in on some amount of rainfall, and more to come, not to mention sections of Tobago as usual. As it relates to the wider view of Doppler radar images, excuse me, we don't see much taking place across the rest of the basin at this time. But as it relates to the temperature forecast, we can see the below average temperatures expected across sections of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, the southeastern United States, Central America, the Greater Antilles, while it's the central and eastern Caribbean that should be getting on those above normal temperatures as indicated by those yellows and oranges. As it relates to the Saharan dust forecast for 2 p.m. on Wednesday, we do see the browns that represent the Saharan dust for sections of the central and eastern main development region right there off the coast of Africa. Lots of browns right there. That's indicative of a vigorous plume coming off of the coast of Africa, and hopefully it dwindles by the time it gets to the Caribbean. If it doesn't, prepare for those hazy skies, beautiful sunrises and sunsets, not to mention the respiratory illnesses that can be triggered in some people if it actually gets here in the Caribbean. As far as the wave forecast, we can see that both the Euro and the GFS models are showing that for the Caribbean, we should be receiving anywhere from 1 to 1.5 meter wave heights as indicated by the blues that we see on the key on the bottom right. While that's because of the winds that are expected. Not so strong winds across the central and eastern Caribbean, as you can see more in the way of blues that represent anywhere from 0 to 5 to even 10 knots coming in from the east, southeast, or the southeast across the eastern Caribbean for the most part, coming in from the north across the Greater Antilles, the central and western Caribbean associated with the cold front and the high pressure ridge right there across the southeastern United States. As it relates to the rainfall forecast, keep in mind that both of these maps from the Euro and the GFS are showing the accumulated precipitation that's expected from now up until 10 p.m. on Wednesday, and we do see that rainfall across the southern Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, eastern Cuba, sections of Jamaica that we mentioned already, Honduras and coastal areas of Honduras, that is Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia getting in on the action, not to mention sections of the eastern Caribbean. So those areas that we just mentioned a while ago, sections of Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, not to mention sections of the northeastern Caribbean, so Guadeloupe, Antigua and Barbuda, sections of St. Bart's, Anguilla, the US and British Virgin Islands, sections of Puerto Rico, Haiti and Dominican Republic definitely going to be getting in on the action that Jamaica has been getting in on today. And we know that when both maps from the Euro and the GFS are in consensus like this, the chance of actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.